A man who killed woman who saw her home as a bed and breakfast was sentenced to life imprisonment, with minimum of 13 years. David Redfern, 46, killed 71-year-old retired Margaret Barnes on the 11th of July last year by dragging her off the bed and down the stairs at her home in Barmouth, North Wales. The landlord was furious when he learned that Mrs. Barnes had settled in her house. The jury heard that Redfern found him sitting on his bed, on the nightstand with his false teeth drinking gin and tonic. He kicked and kicked her, accusing of stealing, before throwing her into the street with suitcase. David Redfern broke 3 ribs after kicking Mrs. Barnes to the ground. Pathologists said Ms. Barnes had broken 3 of her ribs and damaged her liver, and the court heard that Redfern refused to call an ambulance for Ms. Barnes, who was dying in the street. The judge who sentenced Redfern said the landlord admitted he was shocked to see the retiree in his bedroom, but his reaction exceeded anything any reasonable person could imagine. "I understand why you may have escorted him out of his house, but different person may have responded the situation by trying to help him, but the attack, kick or stigma strong enough cause fatal injury, was terrible thing. The judge would do to a vulnerable elderly person. Mrs. Barnes on the street from catastrophic injuries. He had planned to stay at a nearby boarding house a few doors away from Redfern's property." In a statement following the jury's verdict this week, Barnes' family described her as a much-loved wife, mother, and grandmother. "It was the most difficult period of our lives as a family. It was especially difficult for her husband, who has been Margaret's partner for 56 years. Margaret Barnes described as a loved mother and wife. We now have some kind of closure on what happened, but a long sentence will never fill the void Margaret left behind." Detective Superintendent Mark Pierce said Redfern had no regrets and tried to blame Ms. Barnes, exposing her family to the trauma of a 2-week trial. How a 21 stone, 6 feet 1 inch man could inflict such terrible injuries on a frail 71-year-old lady 25 years his senior is beyond the grasp of any reasonable person, Pierce said. David Redfern is a cowardly, brutal bully and will now spend at least 14 years behind bars and reflect on what he has done. On contrary, Margaret's family showed tremendous courage and dignity throughout the investigation and court proceedings. Now that they can move forward, they can begin to rebuild their lives.